the James Hardy 1000 trophy.
To the race start now for the B&H 6-Hour Classic with commentator Brian Lawrence.
The conditions are perfect for the day of reckoning, and over 20,000 people have jammed the stands here at Pukekohe for the running of the 1985 Benson and Hedges 6-Hour Saloon Car Classic. On pole position yesterday with a brilliant time the race, but seconds away. How does everything feel inside the Mustang?
It's fine, mate. Not a problem at all. It's just the first corner's always a worry here, but being on the front row of the grid makes it an awful lot easier.
I think this race looks like a bit of an Australian-New Zealand confrontation, and we hope that we can hold the Kiwi banner high.
My butterflies are really going here today. I think it's just Pukekohe, my home crowd, and I've never won the damn thing.
Naturally, you get a little bit nervous or a bit edgy at the moment. As soon as the flag drops and you've done 100 yards, you're right. But I feel like running back to the toilet now, but you can't do much about it.
Reliability is the problem, and we've had our strife lately, and but at the moment we're pretty confident of finishing, and I think that's probably the name of the game in this 6-hour race.
Well, the Commodore's exceptionally good at getting off the line, and I hope I don't fluff it this time, but I would think I could possibly be alongside Robbie here in front of me, and we'll just take it from there.
Yesterday we have a bit of a problem with the differential and carburation, but we've got our onboard computer here at the moment, and I've just had a quick schooling, so we've got a new floppy disk in it, so to speak, so hopefully it's going to pull out of the corners a lot better.
Graham, you're tucked in behind Tony Longhurst at the moment on the grid. What's going to be your run down towards that hairpin?
Well, Brian, can you just go and ask him to keep left?
It's an extremely reliable car, very fast. Not as fast as it will be, but every time we go out we get faster, and we're so reliable that we'll be there at the end.
With the Ford Motor Company putting up an additional $5,000 for the first Ford home, Dick Johnson starts the race from pole position. A brilliant start from the Queenslander in the Mustang, with alongside him Wayne Wilkinson in the Commodore, Robbie Francevic moving up very quickly in the Volvo, but Bruce Anderson is stalled on the grid. Johnson leads into the first turn, back to Francevic. Third position is Wilkinson, then it's the BMW there of Tony Longhurst. The New Zealand assembled cars make the first turn very safely. Anderson's car is wheeled from the grid. Up to the loop, Dick Johnson, Ford Mustang. This is what the Queenslander sees in the opening lap of this year's Benson and Hedges Saloon Car Classic. Heading toward the back straight for the first time. A little bit of opposite lock. Johnson, Mustang. Francevic, Volvo. Wilkinson, Commodore. And a capacity field over 4 classes of New Zealand assembled cars, all safely on the journey on the opening lap. But Bruce Anderson is in the pits. Bruce Anderson just seconds off the line. What's the problem with the pine pack Mustang?
We've had the misfortune to turn a drive shaft off. It's just turned off like a bit of spaghetti, and well, we didn't move far at all.
You're obviously very relaxed in there. Those nerves of yours must be stretched like a tightrope.
Mate, the rubber band's already broken, so it's all over, I'm afraid.
Bad luck for Bruce Anderson, and the Ford honours now rest with Dick Johnson, who leads the opening laps from Robbie Francevic, Wayne Wilkinson and Tony Longhurst. Into the tight elbow. The Queenslander accelerates away clean, already starting to open up a lead on Francevic in the Volvo, and he's got his mirrors full of Wilkinson's bright red Commodore and the beautifully prepared BMW driven by Queenslander Tony Longhurst. Johnson wastes no time, taking full advantage of the clear road in front of him. Down the long back straight, the Mustang's got the legs. Johnson, one of Australasia's most experienced touring car drivers. Longhurst in the black BMW, moving up under brakes on Wilkinson's Commodore, who in turn moves up on Francevic. But Johnson has still got that lead. In 5th place in the VK Commodore, Denny Holm, some 2 seconds in arrears. Here's car 6, Graham Crosby in the BMW 635, moving up through the field very quickly indeed after a disappointing practice time. And there's Bruce Anderson rejoining the race. The half shaft has been replaced in the Mustang, and he's on the journey several laps in arrears as Dick Johnson shows you what it's all about behind the wheel of the Mustang at over 140 miles an hour. There's Johnson moving up and amongst the tail-enders already, but he drops half the car on the grass. Losing traction, Johnson locks up and leaves the circuit. This is going to cost him time. There goes Francevic in the Volvo. Tony Longhurst is through in the BMW as well. Johnson is rejoined just in front of Wayne Wilkinson in the Commodore. And the crowd are beside themselves. Robbie Francevic leads the 1985 Benson and Hedges 6-hour saloon car race at Pukekohe. The 2.1-litre turbocharged Volvo is on the journey as Dick Johnson is very quickly trying to make up the time that he's lost. Francevic under brakes into the Castrol curve and now entering the long back straight. Robbie Francevic in the Swedish Volvo 240 Turbo leads the Benson and Hedges 6-hour at Pukekohe. Into the hairpin, Francevic has already opened a big lead. Anderson in the Mustang on the journey. Longhurst in second position. Wayne Wilkinson in the pits. Already this is disaster for the Auckland duo of Wayne Wilkinson and Graham Balkett. The mechanics are working feverishly toward the rear of the car. This doesn't look good. Wayne Wilkinson has unbuckled the 6-point harness seat arrangement and is vacating the driver's seat. What bad luck for the former Benson and Hedges winner. The mechanics are working around the fuel area as Longhurst pit crew signal him on his way in a very strong second position. But the experienced Francevic absolutely flying in the Swedish Volvo, leading the Benson and Hedges Saloon Car Classic, already in amongst the tail-enders, who obligingly move to the left, allowing the Volvo to speed through on its safe journey, through the loop and into the short straight. This is the race leader, Robbie Francevic. But let's find out what happened to Wayne Wilkinson. Wayne Wilkinson already into the pits. What's the problem with the Commodore?
Well, it looks like the one of the brackets that support the petrol tank at the back is broken, and petrol was coming out onto the track, so obviously we couldn't continue.
And how long do you think it'll be before you get back out there again?
I don't think we will do.
Bad luck for the Wayne Wilkinson, Graham Balkett Commodore crew. The fuel had been frozen in the tank prior to the race, but a 15-minute delay had caused it to expand, splitting the tank, and with the fuel, down the road went their chances of any victory in this year's 6-hour endurance race. At just over half an hour, Aucklander Robbie Francevic and the Volvo led. Second position already, Dick Johnson absolutely charging through the field in the bright green Ford Mustang GT. Third position, former national skiing champion, Queensland's Tony Longhurst in the BMW 635. Fourth spot was being occupied by Denny Holm, a very steady drive as always expected from the very experienced endurance man Holm. Fifth position, a brilliant drive already being put in by former double world motorcycle champion Graham Crosby in the second of the BMW 635s. Sixth outright at this stage was the XJS Jaguar, driven by Wellington's Mike Hourigan. Paul Adams, 7th overall, leading the 0 to 1600 Group A class. And in behind him, Auckland's Bruce Drinkrow, second in a similar car. The 1801 to 2 litre class featured the Mazda 626Is, this one driven by rally star Neil Allport.
The New Zealand production series is very, very strong, and there's a lot of competition here every year. This is totally different from rallying, and we've got to take a whole different look at it. With Mazda this year, this new 626 car, Goes very well, and you know, it's a lot different from an RX-7, and we're using radial ply tyres, and you know, preparation, everything's totally different, but things are going well for us.
Is there any problem with some of these slower capacity cars?
Sometimes we get the problem with the Group A cars, and you know, they tend to push you around a little bit.
At over 100 miles an hour, Robbie Francevic hustles his way through some of the slower cars. Dick Johnson, in second position, leads fellow Queenslander Tony Longhurst in the BMW for third. Johnson with a mirror full of the beautiful black BMW driven by Queenslander Longhurst. And there's Robbie Francevic at 67 laps, lapping Denny home. Here's Graham Crosby, halfway down the back straight, accelerating strongly in the BMW, and he's in fifth position. Johnson and Longhurst in second and third, charging, but should this pace be part of Johnson's race strategy?
We thought the Volvo might go out from the start. We just sat back and waited. Now the race has settled down into a plan. Everything's going the way we want it to go.
I wonder if Dick Johnson has been listening to Neil Lowe, because both he and Tony Longhurst are still charging. Robbie Francevic still leads the Benson and Hedges in the Volvo, but the gap appears to have been closing. Johnson's actually starting to close in on Robbie at this point. Are you very worried about that? Is there much difference in his times?
I've given Robbie the signal. As you see, he's going away again, so I think he's just riding smoothly and trying to conserve the car at the stage.
But this is Francevic coming into the pits. The left rear tyre has got a slow puncture. This is costing the Auckland crew very valuable time. Mechanics are on the job. The four-poster air jacks and a complete change of tyres. The car is refueled. This is unscheduled, but it's going to give Francevic a slight advantage on one hand and a disadvantage on the other. There you can see the high-powered air hammers. The single nut on the wheel eliminating the time. Francevic keeps the engine turning over. Very cool, calm and collected. A smooth stop, and he's on the journey once again. There's the offending tyre. Not completely flat, but enough to give the trouble. And there as we see him, Queensland's Dick Johnson leads the race for the second time in the number 17 Ford Mustang GT. And busier than a bricklayer in Beirut, Dick Johnson at work in his office. Second position, Tony Longhurst, BMW. Denny Holman third in the VK Commodore. And the attrition rate has already begun. One of the Ford lasers, with a very dejected face, heads toward the pit. Smoke billowing from under the bonnet. Francevic hustling in fourth position. And there's the sixth place Jaguar, being blatantly driven off the circuit. What an unbelievable act on the driver's part there. The Jaguar looking for the run round the outside, and all of a sudden there appeared to be a turn from nowhere in a straight line. That could have been a nasty one. There's Paul Adams. Denny Holm comes in for the first of the driver changes. He'll be handing over to car owner Ray Smith. A very experienced crew under the eyes of Lyle Williamson, straight into action. Up go the air jacks. Holm assisting Smith with the adjustment of the belts in the car. The mechanic's job is done. The windscreens are cleaned, arms in the air signifying that they have completed their task. Ray Smith rejoins today's race. Dick Johnson still leads the race in the number 17 Ford Mustang. There's Graham Crosby in the 635 BMW in fifth position. And second overall is still being held by the JPS BMW of Australian Longhurst. Robbie Francevic still piling all the pressure on in the Volvo, doing what he does best, charging. Here's Longhurst coming in with an hour and 45 minutes of the race completed for a driver change, fuel and a complete fresh set of tyres. He comes out of the car. You can see the perspiration soaked through the driver's overalls. A full tank of fuel goes in, and so too does South Islander Trevor Crow, debuting this season in Group A. The car goes down onto its wheels again. Low gear selected and Crow's on his way. There's Robbie Francevic again, and now with all these pit and driver changes, he finds himself now up into second position. There's the race leader, Dick Johnson, about to come into the pits and to hand over to Auckland and Neville Crichton.
This time in, we'll do a full wheel change, 120 litres of fuel, add a litre of oil to the engine, and check the disc pads. That'll all be done, I hope, in about 24 seconds.
The mechanics operate the four-post air jacks. Johnson springs from the car, Crichton straight in. A little assistance coming to adjust the belts. The oars check, the windscreen's clean. The mechanics are on the job very quickly to remove the wheels. A fresh set of tyres put on. Around $2,000 for a set of tyres. Johnson having a quick word to Neville Crichton. This is a slow pit stop. This is costing them time. There's a problem here. The left front wheel has not been secured properly, and Dick Johnson is disappointed. Inspects it himself, okays it to Crichton, engages the clutch, and the number 17 Mustang joins. Of Group A racing at world-class level. Dick, a great race so far. You were leading in the John Andrew Ford Mustang when you came in. How's the race plan going?
Just fine. Like, the car's brand new. There's not a thing wrong with it. It's just some of those whackers in slow cars, mate. They're unbelievable.
What's been the major problem with them?
Just slow cars. They sit 3 and 4 abreast across the damn road. You just can't get past them. Like, they're 50 mile an hour slower.
As far as your tyre change and your fuel stop went, there was a little problem there with the left front wheel. What caused that delay?
Well, there wasn't a problem. It's just the guys weren't used to those wheels, and the wheel nut didn't look as though it was on as far as it was with the other wheels, which it isn't. But it's quite okay. There's no problem.
Graham Crosby in the 5th place BMW arrives in pit lane to hand over to Wellington co-driver Lou McKinnon. But, however, the handling in the BMW is not right.
I think the tyres are actually picking up a lot of rubber off the circuit, which is a bit of a problem because you're starting to get a vibration and like not having enough experience in cars. I don't know whether it's a drive shaft falling out or whether it's just I haven't spun it, so it's got no flat spots on it.
As far as your race strategy is concerned, everything going according to plan?
I would have liked to have gone about 2 seconds quicker for the first hour and a half, I suppose. But now, yeah, it's looking pretty good.
So as far as the rest of the race is concerned, you'll do the final 2 hours?
Yeah, it's hard work, this. I need a beer.
Maybe that vibration wasn't the problem they needed after all. Ray Smith in the Commodore, he shares with Denny Hall.
It's going really, really good. I've just been stroking the thing along, but right at the very end it developed a fair bit of violent oversteer on all the left-hand or right-hand corners. And I thought the tyre was on the canvas, but the tyres look all right, so I'll have to just get cracking when I get out there again.
This is Trevor Crow in the BMW. He shares with Australian Tony Longhurst.
We weren't due to come in until 2 hours, but I had a flat spot and actually had a puncture at about 1 hour and 3/4. So it means we're probably going to have another stop now, which we didn't want to do.
You were running in very close company with Dick Johnson in the Mustang. Has the BMW got the legs on it down the straight?
It's probably, I think we're nearly equal. I think I was picking him up under brakes, and I was having a great time there. But again, we were passing one of the slower cars in the braking area, and I think the bloke forgot to brake, and he came charging past me, and I wasn't messing around. I thought he was going to T-bone Dick, but Dick apparently got around the corner clean enough, and he sort of went in between us, and I virtually ground to a halt, so I dumped 5 or 6 seconds there. And then, you know, you only have to have a bit of bad luck, like you get a bit of traffic on the corner and Dick got that bit of a break, and I sort of was maintaining it towards the end there at 13 or 14 seconds.
Aucklander Neville Crichton in the Ford Mustang that he shares with Dick Johnson.
Well, you know, we set a race plan. If I could get a bit of a buffer in the early stages of the race, I'd just sit there. But if those guys wanted to go quicker than I wanted to go, well, I'd just let them go.
So at this point, everything captured the Nissan 500 in Wellington 10 months ago and did so well during the Australian National Touring Car title. What makes this car tick?
The thing is that it's basically a production car. That's the beauty of them. The engine's a 2.1 litre, 4-cylinder inline, the same engine that goes into all the Volvos sold all over the world. Added to that is a Garrett T3 turbocharger. And turbocharger is the new way the world is going. And all cars are coming out with them now. This one, because it's such a strong basic engine, it's running a turbocharger, and the beauty of it is that after the charge, which comes out very hot, under high pressure, it comes forward to what we call an intercooler. And that is a radiator, just like a water radiator, which carries the charge of the charge, air and fuel, through and in through the flapper valve into the engine. And that gives it a tremendous boost in horsepower. Of course, you're limited then to the strength of the unit because you can put as much horsepower as you want through a turbocharger, but it generates heat, it generates horsepower, and that's stress. And so the rest of the engine has to be able to cope with it. And the Volvo engine, being as strong as it seems to be able to handle it, no problem.
As far as fuel consumption is concerned, is the Volvo any easier on fuel than the bigger cars?
No, unfortunately, that is one of the pitfalls of turbocharging, is that they do use a lot of fuel when you're under full boost, and so our fuel consumption isn't good. But the narrow tyres mean that we're not too concerned about that because we've got skinny tyres, which the regulations make us run because we're a little car, and so they wear out because we're putting so much horsepower through them. So we come in and change tyres anyway, so we just throw in fuel at the same time.
At 2 hours and 8 minutes into the race, Francebrink brings the leading Volvo into the pits to hand over to car owner and driver Mark Pitch.
Last time I drove competitively was in 1972-73, but this class of car, under Group A regulations with the amount of horsepower it's got, I've never driven anything like this before, and further to that, I am on the pace if you look at the times of most of the drivers.
After having criticism levelled at him earlier on, Mark Pitch joins the race for the first time in the Volvo, and we'll be watching his progress with much interest. Meantime, at over the 2 hour mark, the race still continues. Car number 2, the Auckland Coin and Bullion Commodore, after originating from the workshops in Melbourne of Peter Brock, continues the race in 4th position, driven by Ray Smith. One of the many things that goes through a driver's mind has got to be safety.
The big risk is fire. We're all terrified that we're going to have an accident, the car's going to burst into flames and we're going to be badly burnt and scarred. The cars themselves are equipped with a special fuel tank with a membrane in the tank and foam in the tank so that if it does split, the fuel is relatively well contained. The suits that we wear, which not all the drivers do wear properly, but the ones that have got the proper clothing are wearing Nomex underwear, long johns, as well as the top. The overalls themselves are Nomex, or fireproof material. We wear a balaclava, which is dreadfully uncomfortable and hot while we're racing, but we wear it. The gloves are also a fireproof material, same thing. The boots are, once again, specially fireproof. I guess that's our biggest worry is fire. The helmets, of course, are very important, as we saw when Kent had his accident at Manfield a few weeks ago. His helmet cracked and flew off, although there's no suggestion that there was anything wrong with the helmet. It was a serious accident. I think the helmet certainly saved his life, so we can see how important it is.
Sunday, October 20th, the opening round in Auckland at Kent Bajan. Touched at the end of the back straight with Denny Holm at over 200 kilometres an hour, the car somersaulting 5 times. Bajan was injured, but hopefully he'll be back.
We consider the communication to the pits imperative. In a good race, you don't need it at all, but if something goes wrong, if you get a puncture, say in the left rear wheel, you can call the pits, tell them what is wrong, they can have it ready for you when you come in. The time that's saved can win the race.
But all the communication in the world won't hurt Bryce Smith at the moment. The Commodore is slowing. There's something dragging underneath the back end of the car. His arm is raised in the air. He heads to the right-hand side of the circuit and regrettably the pit lane. And the attrition rate continues. This is the Halliday Nissan parked on the exit from the hairpin. The Commodore is in the pits. Ray Smith exiting from the car.
The second gearbox we've blown up this week. The gearbox that we've got on at the moment is actually Brocky's gearbox out of number 5. Because there just aren't any spares at the moment. They're still building up some. And it's done a few miles. We were hoping that it would hold together, but it didn't.
You're running fairly well up to now.
Yeah, the car was going beautifully.
Just like that.
Just bang.
Set of gears and no case around it.
Get it?
Yeah. That's Brock's, is it?
Yeah. Number 5. So we'll send it back to him on Monday. So we don't need it anymore.
So sorry, mate.
He's goosed now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Didn't think he was going good. Passed me down the back straight. I guess it was Croaky. Or was it you?
Must have been Croaky. I didn't pass you. Geez, them slow cars are unbelievable, aren't they?
Did you get near that one that had the accident? Yeah. I never saw it.
There was 2 of them side by side, one in front, and then this other turkey behind. And I come up beside him here, and he went whoosh. He got it out of this guy's toe, and he hit the front of my car.
One of the other slower cars with a problem was the King Pilcher Mazda, losing control at the top of the hill. But the car that Dick Johnson was talking about was that of the similar Mazda driven by Aucklanders Dave McMillan, and Gary Pedersen was at the wheel when an earlier incident sidelined the popular Aucklander. The car somersaulted off the circuit, and Gary Pedersen, out of the Benson and Hedges this year, sustained a badly broken arm. At around the 3-hour mark, Neville Crichton led in the John Andrew Ford Mustang, while the smaller New Zealand assembled cars were having problem coping with the circuit conditions as the radial tyres began to wear. Mark Petch in second position in the Volvo. Third position, Christchurch's Trevor Crow in the Archibald BMW. In fourth position overall, the Jaguar XJS, driven by Wellington's Alan Prince. Graham Crosby charging again on the road in the BMW. A brilliant drive in fifth overall is Adams and Wolf in the Toyota Corolla, having a tremendous tussle with the Drinkrow brothers, who are due for a scheduled pit stop.
We're hoping he'll have to stop for tyres and brakes, and we won't have to, and that's where we hope to pull it back.
The Drinkrow brothers pit the right car's Toyota. The mechanics are on the job and the necessary checks are made on the vehicle. Bruce Drinkrow out, Alan Drinkrow in. A full tank of fuel. And in a matter of seconds, they're on the journey once again. And Anderson is back in the pits in the Pine Pack Ford Mustang. And a tremendous battle going on here for second position. This is Mark Petch in the Volvo, and there is Trevor Crow. He's been challenging very strongly in the last few laps, and he's edging closer and closer to the Volvo all the time as Anderson rejoins the race once again. And here's Crosby back in the pits. There's fuel leaking from the rear of the BMW. The rags are placed under to absorb it all, but it's pouring out. This is yet another blow to the team.
What happened? Well, actually, in the first session, when I brought the car in, it had a vibration on the back left, and I thought it was a tyre. Picking up a bit of rubber, and I said to the boys, you know, check that tyre, and it looks okay, so I've gone out, but apparently it's a half shaft that's started to work its way loose, and it's just come off completely now.
So you've all finished having fun for the day?